You know, I just have always stayed in awe of the Lord. From the moment that God arrested my soul and gave me a purpose in my life bigger than myself, I've never lost the awe of God. That's why I love this scripture in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 28. It says, "So, therefore, since we are receiving an unshakable kingdom, let us give thanks, and through this let us offer worship pleasing to God in devotion and awe." In devotion and awe. You know, I want to talk about a passion for God, compassion for souls. There's something about loving God and for what He's done for us that breaks our hearts with the things that break His, to reach out with the compassion for other people. I wrote a sermon and spoke this many, many years ago during a time of 40 days of fasting and prayer and worship with leaders from across my city. We called it Houston Prayer Mountain. For 40 straight days, worshiped together every night, fasted and prayed together, and we had thousands came through that time in Houston, Texas, called Houston Prayer Mountain. But I remember this place where I was in awe of God. Bob Pierce, the founder of World Vision, used to pray this prayer: "God, break my heart with the things that break yours." And as I began to pray that, the Lord began to do a work inside of me, because I don't want to lose that place. I don't want to be so comfortable in my relationship with God that I forget His heart passion to continue to rescue the perishing. So I did a message called Seed for the Soil of Souls. The great revivalist Charles Finney used to say, "Revival is no more a miracle than a crop of wheat." What does that mean? The miracle is not in the fact that we sow the seed, fertilize the seed, water the seed. The miracle is that God, in God's creation, in God's wisdom, in God's awesomeness, that He took the seed, and that when a seed is planted in the ground, the seed dies in the ground and then sprouts. And that one seed that sprouts becomes a plant and ultimately brings forth a harvest. So the real miracle is not in the fact that we are called to plant and water. The real miracle is what God does with when we plant and water, fertilize and tend to the soil. So we are called to be seed, or to sow seed for the soil of souls. God has empowered us, given us revelation of the work of the cross and the power of the resurrection. He's given us a purpose beyond ourselves. And so when I look at this scripture in Hebrews, "So therefore, since we receive this unshakable kingdom," you know, everything's being shaken. We talked about Hebrews 12 before, and that everything is being shaken. Every institution, everything around the world, everything seems to be shaken. Even the earth is groaning and shaking with earthquakes and tsunamis and typhoons, so many different storms and natural disasters. So much is being shaken. But what God is telling us in Hebrews 12:28 is that we have received an unshakable kingdom. That no matter what is being shaken down around us, we're unshakable. So we should give thanks to God and let us offer authentic worship to Him that is pleasing to God, so we can do this in devotion and awe of Him. I never want to lose my awe of God. I want to be able to be in that place of authentic worship and innocence and purity before Him. I recognize I'm nothing without Him. In fact, everything I do, all the good works I do, is fueled by the presence of God. The great Dwight Moody, D.L. Moody, the great evangelist, said that there's no limitations to those who've been in the presence of the Lord. No limitations, no limits, in other words, to any of us who've been in the presence of the Lord. When we get in His presence in prayer, and we begin to pray that He would touch our hearts and to commission us and anoint us to do what He's called us to do, to touch His heart by doing what He's called us to do, to reach out to others as seed for the soil of souls. When we do that, God is able to do something in us that's far greater in greater capacity than we could ever do for ourselves. That truly is compassion in action. That truly is compassion evangelism. Because with our hearts of compassion, not just out of good works, but out of our hearts of compassion, reaching out to others. Proverbs 14:25 says that a true witness rescues lives or saves souls. We are to be a people who rescue lives and save souls. In the book of Acts, I believe chapter 26, it speaks of Paul when he was Saul. And Jesus appears to him and says, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Why do you kick against the goads?" And then he says, "I have appeared to you, or revealed myself to you, or giving the revelation of myself with this purpose." In other words, the moment we get the revelation of the work of the cross in our lives, God gives a purpose that's greater than us. What is that purpose? He says, "I've called you to be a minister and a witness of the things you have seen and the things you have not yet seen. A minister and a witness. What is a minister? We're to be ministers of reconciliation because we've been reconciled to God. We are now ministers of reconciliation to others who are alienated from God, who loved them so much and gave his life for them. And secondly, we're to be witnesses. A witness rescues lives. So we're to be ministers of reconciliation, and we're to be true witnesses who rescue lives or save souls. When we have this understanding of a purpose greater than ourselves, a purpose that's beyond our own purposes, our own desires, our own ideas of what we're supposed to be, when God gives the revelation of the work of the cross, he gives us a purpose bigger than us and a purpose that is far greater than us. So we can be those ministers of reconciliation, and we can be those who are tangible expression of Christ, those who rescue lives and save souls.